I believe that you need to listen to this testimony. I don't think that you clicked on it for no reason. I know a lot of people say that, but in all actuality, there's billions of people on this earth, and there are billions of people that are using YouTube, and only a handful of people get a certain video. This video will probably get at most 200 views, but one of those 200 was you, so you were meant to watch it. So I'm going to tell you guys my testimony, because God is, I have to. My soul is on the line, and I have been trying so hard to get my testimony out there, but something always happens, or when I go to do it, I don't feel good all of a sudden. Like, I get attacked, and the devil does not want this testimony out there, because it is a very powerful testimony. I've dealt with witchcraft, I've dealt with homelessness, I've dealt with, jail and all of it, etc., psych wards, everything, you name it, I've dealt with it. Anyways, let me get to it. I grew up in Georgia, and suburban white guy in a suburban neighborhood with a bunch of kids. I had a really good childhood. Pretty much I hated going to school. I couldn't stand it. The moment I got off that bus, I was outside. It was a little bit different back then when I was a kid. Now you get off the bus and you go inside and play your tablet or video games. And actually, in fact, I did. I had PlayStations and stuff back then, but I chose to be outside. I mean, even now, I can't sit down and play a video game for too long. Unless it's like story mode, like Skyrim. I loved Skyrim, man. That was always my favorite. Or Grand Theft Auto, but I don't play that anymore. I grew up on that, and that's probably part of the problem, picking up girls and, taking them to a secret spot and then beating them up after, that's not good, and kids shouldn't be doing that. That's terrible. And if you're doing that and you're young, don't, life isn't like that. Life isn't like that. Life isn't like that, okay? So, I grew up with two brothers. I had an older brother, middle brother, and a twin sister, and they are completely different than me. I am 100% the black sheep of the family. Everything they did, I went the opposite way. And it had nothing to do with the fact that I didn't like them. I loved them, but I just had completely opposite interests, They didn't mind going to school, really. They liked doing their schoolwork. I hated going to school. I hated doing my schoolwork. I was a smart kid. Somehow I made it to 11th grade. But they loved football. I loved skateboarding. They loved staying home and, watching football or whatever. And I was never home. And that was part of the problem, too. I had a lot of freedom. But... So yeah, that was elementary school, and when I was in elementary school, really, it kind of got started there because there was somebody in my life that was a pot smoker and hung out with pot smokers, hung out with people that wanted to party, and I really looked up to this person. I mean, this person was really kind of my role model in a sense, and so, I, by this person, was influenced to smoke my first cigarette and smoke my first joint while I'm in 5th grade. And then, I'm hanging out with his friends and they're all, doing stuff like, and telling me, don't do this ever. This is bad. Or like chopping up stuff and, asking me when I'm in elementary school. That kind of stuff. So I thought it was cool, so as I grew up, that person left, and I grew up, and I still wanted to be like that person. So when I was in middle school, I didn't really, at first, meddle with drugs or anything. I was an inline skater. I mean, same thing. I'd get off the bus, I'm inlining right down the road, and jumping over the speed bumps, doing 360s. I'm like purposefully waiting for a car to come so that I can I can skate with the car and then jump the speed bump doing a 360 to show off. So lame. But yeah, I was into that. My other friends that I was living next to were too, so I had some really close friends in middle school. I was always hanging out with them. I'd go to Fort Lauderdale, Florida and stuff, and go to the beach, and we'd go to skate parks. And one time I didn't have a belt when we went to a skate park in Florida, and my friend who was like trying to power lift when we were in middle school, he was a big guy. He still is, but I didn't have a belt, so he let me use his, and I had to cut a hole in it so that it would fit. And as I was cutting the hole in it, I cut the knife, sliced my finger, cut me to the bone, and there was blood everywhere at the skate park. But anyways, little side story. So yeah, I'd hang out with them. So, eventually as I got older, into 8th grade, I started getting a little more curious. And at this point, I'm not exactly sure why, but there were influences around me and my friends that were influencing us, and we wanted to try it, so we did, and started smoking pot, and we'd try a couple beers here and there. That was in like 8th grade. Well, I moved from where I was living, and I was still going to the same school, but I got to 9th grade. And I'm finally in high school. I'm loving it. Like, now I can be like that role model in elementary school, because he was in high school and I wanted to be in high school so bad, and girls and partying, and that was my idea of high school. And so I had a best friend and a couple best friends, and we would hang out all the time, and still exploring. And we started really smoking pot a lot. People say that you can't get addicted to weed, but I beg to differ. I think that's absolute nonsense, because I absolutely was addicted. I could not go a day without it. It was to a point where me and my friend were thinking about robbing a drug dealer. This was in 9th grade or 10th grade. So that we could get it, that's how bad it got. So to say that pot isn't addictive, that's insanity. Especially today, pot is a drug, man. Don't get it mixed. It is 100% hard drug now. But so yeah, I was habitually smoking. I was addicted to pot and smoking it every day. I was taking the lunch money my parents gave me, and I was buying pot, and then I was asking another person to buy lunch for me every day. Like this, it's just crazy. But at that time, like, I genuinely didn't think I was really doing anything wrong. Like, I didn't really think about it. Like, I was just doing it, like, I was just buying it with that money, and then I didn't have money, and then like doing stupid stuff like that. Like, I never really thought about it. Until now, and I look back and I'm like, that's crazy, dude. I can't believe that I did stuff like that. But so, I'm experimenting with me and my friends, and they built a skate park in my town in Grayson, Georgia. Shout out to Grayson, Georgia. I never want to go back there again. So they built a skate park, and it was right next to the high school that I was going to. So every day, all of us were at the skate park, and every day, all of us were just chilling, smoking weed, and drinking, doing whatever we wanted, and really getting into stuff. I mean, I never really like did any hard stuff at this point when I was in high school, but yeah, I was smoking weed a lot. And so there was one time that a friend of mine, he passed, and just recently actually, from drugs. But this one time, and this is another thing, like, we were young and stupid, and like, I don't think that he necessarily really meant harm by it. I don't think that he was wanting any harm to come from it, like, but like, they do it in prison sometimes, where they take Germ-X, or they take alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and they mix it with a lot of water, and they drink it, and you actually get drunk off of it. But it's highly, highly dangerous. Never do this. I don't even know why I said that. Never. It can kill you. It can make you blind. It can trigger the part of your brain where you will have seizures the rest of your life. Do not do this. From now on, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I am very lucky to be alive. Very. He didn't tell us. He just thought it was regular. And so me and my friends were all drinking it, and definitely we did, But I got so sick. If I knew I still didn't know what was in it, I would have gone to the hospital. That is how bad it was. I could have died that night. It could have caused me to go blind. That has happened to people that have done this. They have gone blind. Never do it. Okay? I'm gonna get a flag on this video. Anyways, like and comment so that I don't get a flag, please. That'll definitely help get the video out. Anyways, yeah, I was skipping school every day, and doing stupid stuff like that. My mom would literally drop me off at school, and I would walk through the school, and I would just leave and go to my friend's house, and we would be there all day or every day doing our thing. Bell rings. It was right next to the school. Bell rings. We all walk back to the school and hop on the bus and go home, and then wait for the school to call our parents and wait for them to yell at us every day. That's how bad it was getting. So eventually my parents got tired of it, and they were like, they started looking into stuff, and they found a military school called Youth Challenge Academy. It's YCA Youth Challenge Academy. If you've got a troubled teen, or they just won't go to school, this is a 6-month long boot camp. Let's say they're in 10th grade. It's a 6-month long boot camp. There's fun stuff to do. Like, I went rappelling down mountains, and I was on color guard, and I was yelled at every single day, but or screamed at, more so. But I graduated early. I graduated before everyone. So you go for 6 months, you get your GED, and you're done with school. While everyone's finishing up 11th and 12th grade, you're out of school. So Youth Challenge Academy, it's a really good thing. So I did that. My parents sent me to that. Did really good. Like I said, I was like on recon, which was like rappelling. Like, we went to North Georgia and we rappelled down some mountains, and like we would rock climb and do zip lines and stuff like that. It was really cool. But yeah, I excelled. I mean, I graduated at the top. They picked 10 cadets, is what we were called, for like the honored students, I guess you could say. And I was one out of those 10. So I excelled, and I did really good. And I had a complete change of heart. I mean, when I got out, I was completely different. I was writing love letters every day from military school to my girlfriend, and then when I got out, I love that. We were together for like 3 years, but after I got out, we hung out like every day. I didn't hang out with my friends. I was still my military school Christopher. I was dedicated. I was hardworking. I had my head on straight. I loved my girlfriend. We'd go out and do stuff every day. Loved life. My girlfriend hated my friends. She didn't want me hanging out with them, understandably. Now, I get it. I love my friends, but, I only have a couple best friends, left over that I love like brothers. A lot of my other friends, they just kind of fell by the wayside because we kind of had different interests. But the thing is when I started hanging out with them again, I started smoking weed and drinking every day. And now I could say, oh, well, I shouldn't have started hanging out with them and this and that. And it's like, well, like, it's not their fault. It's my fault. I made the decision. And so, yes, I slowly started hanging out with them. She hated that. And I thought she was being overbearing. So I broke up with her. And I'm just hanging out with my friends, and we start a little band, a reggae band, and we're, smoking and drinking and just playing music and jamming. I miss those guys so much. But, we played a couple shows. One time we played at a party for my friend because he was moving to Colorado from Georgia. That was a fun night. But, we were just smoking and drinking. But the thing is I kept doing that. And then I met another girl, and I started dating her. Her name is Heaven. and she is now passed on, and that really messed me up, and I'll get into that in the future. Or in the future, like, 10 years from now, we'll talk about it. Like, no, just, you know what I mean? So I met her, and when I met her, we were both kind of wild. We were just wild, man. We were out there. I was doing my own stuff. She was doing her own stuff, and we kind of came together, and it was just not good. I still love her with all my heart, but it just, ended up not being good. So she moved in with me, and I helped, because at this time I still did kind of had my head on straight. Like, I was smoking and stuff, but I was working a full-time job, and I was taking care of my grandma every morning. I was making her Ovaltine, and I was making her food and giving her medicine, and so I still kind of had my head on straight. But so she moves in, and actually when she moved in with me, she got off of everything, and like, we were away from stuff like that for a while. What happened though is our town got flooded. When I tell you flooded, it was infiltrated by, I don't know if it's the cartels or whatever, but everybody got on this drug. Everybody was on it, and it is something that can suppress your respiratory system. I'll just put it that way. Everyone got on it, so we were both kind of influenced in our own ways by people, but my influence actually was taking care of my grandma. And what I mean by that is that when I was taking care of her, I would give her medicine every morning. Well, she had a few bottles of pills, and when I say a few bottles of pills, I mean those big round bottles, and that she never touched, but she got them like every month or however long, 3 months. And one day I was like, what is this? Like, why isn't she taking it? So like, I look it up, and I find out that, oh wow, this is actually like, you can, what with it, like, this is legit. So I started taking them. And, because I'm an addict, and I am a dummy, and just, I had a huge hole in my heart that I tried to fill with everything. Girls, drugs, just everything. Nothing worked. And so this is one of the, like, really, like, first hard things that I tried filling that hole with. And so I was taking it every day. Every morning I would take care of her. It started with me taking one, then one another couple days, and then not a couple days, but like one, and then one, and then it turned into 2 every day, and then it turned into 3. I stopped filling the 3, so it turned into 4. Next thing you know, I have a huge tolerance. It all ran out, so now I'm physically addicted already, and I'm mentally and spiritually addicted. And the reason why you can get addicted to weed is to a degree. Physical addiction, you can, but it is a severe spiritual and mental addiction. It is real. Marijuana is addictive. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. If they tell you otherwise, they are, just simply put, a fool. So yeah, don't get into that lifestyle, man. Don't get into that. Open your Bible. Don't do it like I did. So I started taking them. Well, I ran out. So I go to another friend, and I ask him, like, hey dude, do you know, like, he didn't know I was taking them, but like, I asked him, like, do you know where I can get these? Cause I'm addicted and I need them. And his response was no. But he knew where to get the stuff that flooded our town. So I thought about it for like 30 minutes, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that, man. Like, that doesn't sound like a good idea, but my addiction, it was so strong, the physical addiction. I'm like, okay, well, I need to do something. So I was like, you know what? Moderation. I'm like thinking, like, well, if I just like feel better this one time, then like I can moderate it after that. It's like, what? The lunacy of it all. So we go and get it, and I'll tell you right now, this is another thing. People will tell you that you can't get addicted your first time. Absolute lie. I was addicted the moment that I tried this. That hole in my heart, it was fake. It was an illusion by the devil. It was fake. It filled it with air, but there was nothing there. That's what it was. Instead of it being full with God's love, his blood, my heart full of his love and blood, it was full of just empty air, but pressure. That's what it was. And I was deceived by it. And, so I started taking that every day. And me and my girlfriend, it was just the same thing. And again, we were both influenced by, different people, and we just kind of came together, and it just was a mess. And so, we are addicted at this point, and really addicted. But we're not doing it the intravenous way. So, just other ways. But I'm like miserable. So this is a thing, is like, I liked it. It kind of filled that hole, but I was miserable because I thought there was something there, but it wasn't, and now I'm trapped in the devil's trap. I am trapped and I cannot get out. So I'm miserable, I'm crying, I'm depressed, I'm always talking to her like, what are we doing? Like, we need to get off of this. I never wanted to get off of it, or I never wanted to get off. No, I never wanted to be on it, like addicted to it, but I was. So I made the decision that I was going to go to the Marines. So I go to the Marines, and I am in recruit training, but the problem is that I went in addicted to this substance. So I was in full-blown withdrawal during recruit training. The first few weeks of recruit training, the worst, because you're shocked. While in complete withdrawal, I'm just my clothes are just drenched in sweat. I'm standing there just trying not to puke while the drill instructor screaming in my face. It was horrible. I would get stuck on the toilet, and I would have 3 drill instructors screaming at me at the same time while I'm sweating everywhere, and like, it was horrible. But somehow, miraculously, I got through it. I mean, I guess I'm just a strong person. I don't know. But there's this thing called post-acute withdrawal syndrome, and every addict should know this. There's your first physical withdrawals that are like a week. After that, you have post-acute withdrawal syndrome. And what that is your chemicals in your brain are pretty much trying to sort themselves out. They're out of whack. They're trying to get back to normal, and it takes a while for them to heal. You don't just heal like that. This is why it's so hard to get off of this, because I'm going to tell you a psychological fact. They did a study where they, on a scale of 1 to 10, studied a dopamine release, right? So what they did is they found out that when you eat a good food, sugar, it releases a number 4 on the scale of 1 to 10 of dopamine, right? Whatever the actual measurement is. Then they did sex, and the sex was like a 7 or an 8, whatever it is. Then they studied these drugs, and it was off the charts dopamine release. So what happens, and the reason why the addiction is so horrible on these things, is because you get to a point where nothing else brings you joy. So a non-addict doesn't understand. A non-addict has never experienced this level of dopamine. So for them, eating food is suffice. Having sex is sufficient for them. Like, why can't we just do that? For us, eating food and having sex is like we're taking a walk in the park. And we're like walking around trying to figure out, like, what's the best playground, and we can't find it, I don't know if that's a stupid analogy, but like, You can't find it, so then you have to go and artificially build your own playground so you can jump back into that dopamine and build that. It's so this is why it's so hard to get off of it. So the post-acute withdrawal syndrome, it lasts for a few months. Sometimes it can last up to 2 years. It takes your brain to heal itself. So, and you got to get through it with God, man. You got to get through it with Jesus. You're not going to do it without Jesus, man. Or like AA, God, whatever. I think Alcoholics Anonymous and all those are just totally heretical. It started off as a Christian organization, and the thing is most of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous hate God. They hate Jesus. I've literally had people tell me, don't talk about Jesus, and I'm like, why? That's my God. Why can't you just respect that that's my God? If you want to talk about Buddha, talk about Buddha, but people don't like to hear the name Jesus. And the thing that made me angry about Alcoholics Anonymous is they take the prayers, the literal prayers that Jesus gave to the disciples, Jesus's prayers out of his own mouth on how to pray to him, and they took it and said, we're going to pray to other gods. That's Alcoholics Anonymous now. And you know what? If that works for you, cool. It doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. I got to deal with Jesus. It just didn't work. Something just didn't feel right about it to me. And I'm not trying to persuade anybody not to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I would say run to the Bible first, is what I would say. But, if that's where you need to go, then that's where you need to go. It works for some people. It doesn't work for others. But anyways, so back to the Marines. I'm sorry, I kind of got off track. But so I'm in the Marines, and, I get past the initial withdrawal, but now I am going into a severe depression, severe anxiety, like almost unbearable, because I was on it so long that it's like while I'm getting screamed at and during fire drill, and just, it was horrible. So finally I walked up to my senior drill instructor and I'm like, look, dude, I can't, man. I told him the truth. I was like, this is what I did. I came in like this, and I just can't do it. And he's like, are you sure? Like, he knew that I would be a good Marine. I mean, I went to military school for 6 months, and if I hadn't gone in addicted, I would have been a great Marine. But I was actually the guy who had to make sure all of the uniforms were okay, because I was so good at doing my uniform. They literally said if anybody else's uniform is all out of whack, it was me. It was my butt. So I get out. And, I go back to my girlfriend heaven, and, they're all using. The whole town is still using. So, of course, I get back into it. Now, I'm going to the methadone clinic, the legal crack house, right? That's what I call it, where drug dealers will go specifically to, bait people, whatever you want to call it, because that's what happened to us. We were going to the methadone clinic, staying sober, and then drug dealers were showing up and like, hey, I got some, I'm just messed up, like. So that's what goes on at the methadone clinic. That wasn't working. This went on for like 3 years, man. And I, again, was just miserable. So I told my girlfriend heaven finally, after, like, I was like 22 at this point, and I was like, I gotta get clean. I'm going to my grandma's. I'm done with this. I got a cold turkey. So I left. I go to my grandma's, and I tried a cold turkey. Well, I'm in about 8 hours, and, I'm curled up in a fetal position, puking on the floor. I can't stand up, just pale, sweating. It was horrible because I was doing so much stuff. And my grandma, she comes in there with her best friend and sees me, and I was so pitiful. My grandmother and her friend had to pick me up and take me to the hospital. So this is kind of like where it gets real, man, because like I'm in the hospital, they give me medicine, and they kind of like, it helps my withdrawals. They're about to send me back home, but my dad is like, no, he's not leaving this hospital until you find him a place. So they do, but this place is a psych ward. I am admitted into this psych ward, and I'm cold turkey detoxing. Now I'm about 24 hours in. I wake up the next day. They take me to my room. I wake up the next day, see the doctor. The medicine they gave me doesn't work. So now I'm still cold turkeying. The weekend comes, so the doctor's not there. I can't see the doctor now until Monday. So pretty much I just cold turkey detox the whole time. And it was horrible again, of course. And I'm going to tell you, anybody thinking about doing these drugs right now, unless you want to end up like me where you diarrhea on the floor, don't do it. All right? That's how bad it is, okay? Don't do it. Don't be a dummy like me, okay? You know, in the psych ward, these people, you know, I think that some of them, their hearts were in the right place, but they were really mean people. Let's just get it straight. Like, because it was a bunch of psych patients, a bunch of people, you know, with schizophrenia and stuff like that, talking to themselves and talking to the air and things. And, you know, they lie a lot because they want to, like, go back to their room. I mean, they're, you know, cooped up all the time. And so I go to the nurse and I'm like, look, I need to talk to you. I need to get something. And she's like, no. She's just telling me no. And I'm like, what? Like, she thought I was lying. And then I stood there for enough time to where I'm like, oh goodness, I need to go to the bathroom. Like, I gotta go. But if I go the other way back where I was, I gotta have someone open the door. So I'm there, and she has to open the door for me to use the bathroom. She thinks I'm lying, so she doesn't open the door. Well, my friend, do you know what happened? I sat down because I had to, and I went right there on the floor. Not because I wanted to, because I had no choice. It's like projectile vomiting, right? And I'm sorry if that's gross. You need to hear this. If you're thinking about doing this stuff, or you're thinking about getting on it, this is the reality that you have to face if you ever want to get off of it, okay? So stay away from it. You know, so they put me into a like cement room, right? And they put me in there with it. The door is like a foot thick steel door, and they leave it cracked, but they put me in there, and I'm in there. There's a little bathroom, throwing up, just as sick as can be, and I start hallucinating. So I start seeing people, and I start seeing smoke, and I'm literally thinking that the place is on fire. And so I go out there and I'm asking them, like, I'm telling them, like, dude, is the place, like, you know, asking them, is the place on fire? And they're telling me no. I'm like, you're hallucinating. And they're like, wow, you really are sick, aren't you? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like asking the nurse, like, please, can I have something? She literally told me, you need to feel it. That's what she said. She said, you need to feel it. To this day, you know, I'm kind of grateful she did that, but at the same time it was still kind of messed up, right? But like, whatever. So I did feel it. I got better. And then they're like, wow, like they saw my personality now, and they're like, oh wow, like you know, you're actually a cool dude. Like, oh wow, we just thought you were a stupid drug addict. And I'm like, no, drug addicts aren't stupid most of the time. Drug addicts are doctors and scientists, you know, and whatever you want to think, mathematicians, PhDs, professors, whatever you want to think of, they're all of it. Lawyers. I've been to treatment centers with lawyers, you know, all of them. It's just, so yeah, that's the thing, is people will say, oh, you're dumb, why would you? So let me ask you this, why is it that a surgeon, because this has happened many times, will go into work drunk, right? They will be told, if you do this one more time, you are fired, you're done. Guess what they'll do? They'll go in drunk again. And they will lose their entire career that they just worked for 10 years for. Why? Because addiction is a mental illness. It is not a just stop. Okay, let's get this straight, right? It is not a just stop. Now, can you just stop? Technically, like, yes, you can, but you got to know the ins and outs of it, and it is a mental illness, and a mental illness is considered a disease. So yes, you could consider it a disease, but not in the sense of like you developed cancer. Okay, let's get that straight too. That's not what we're saying. But so anyways, I get out of there, say bye to my girlfriend, and I go to Augusta, Georgia, where my dad is, because I got to get away from the town. So I get away, and I start working at this restaurant. I'm drinking all the time. I switched it now. Now, instead of doing that drug, now I'm drinking every night. I'm drinking so much, my entire room is full of beer cans. My dad is like, there's no hope for this kid. Like, what? You know? And then one of the people at the restaurant I worked at was using hard drugs, and I started hanging out with her. I didn't know that she was at the time, but I started hanging out with her. Found out she did, so naturally, I started. And so now I'm on that. But I'm thinking, well, it's not the other drug. It's now this hard drug. So it's not, it's whatever. As long as I'm not doing that drug. And so while I'm in Augusta, I find out that I have this intuitive spiritual thing that happens, and it happens to me all the time. But one night, I just got this feeling. I knew it. I felt it in my heart and my soul. I heard a voice that said, "Something's wrong with heaven." I knew absolutely nothing. I didn't get any phone calls, nothing. I heard a voice say, "Something is wrong with heaven." My girlfriend. I guess technically kind of my ex-girlfriend at that time, right? And so I am like going home from my friend's house. I'm running home. I'm bawling. And I'm trying to call her over and over again. I am bawling, running home. I get home to my dad. I'm bawling, crying, saying something's wrong with heaven. And at this point, I'm like, we got to go there. We got to go check it out. Like, what's going on with her? And so finally, eventually, I get in touch with her mom. And her mom tells me she's in a coma. So I go up there. And I'm like hoping, like, like praying, like, Lord, like, please, And so I get there, and as I'm walking in the hospital, her grandma is walking out, and just tells me that she didn't make it. So that really messed me up, and so I go to the funeral and everything, and I go back home to my dad, but it's the same thing. I got to get out of there, and because now I'm on those drugs. So I think, like, well, if I go to my grandma's house, that'll help me. And at this point, dude, I'm telling you, I'm crazy, bro. Like, I'm painting my fingernails black. I'm wearing all black. I'm like, just not right. I'm drinking every night, using these drugs, and I get to my grandma's, and it's just me. Just lonely, just at my grandma's, and like, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not really talking to my friends because my friends think I'm crazy, because like I'm on Facebook, like not acting right, but like, at that time I really needed help, but I didn't really like have many people that, and it is what it is. It just is what it is. And so I met my grandma's next door neighbor, and started hanging out with him for a little bit. He was cool, but I didn't know that he was using the drug that infiltrated the town. And so eventually I found out. I'm in this state of mind where I'm miserable, I'm depressed, I am lonely, I'm trying to make sense of everything that's happening. And so I'm like, I used it because I'm like, what? I don't know. I just needed to feel something. And which I think that's what it is. It's just we're all trying to feel something. Like, we're all trying to fill that hole, and we're all trying to feel something. And when we try to fill that hole and feel something, we give ourselves a mental illness. And so, yeah, I start using again for a few months, and I tell myself, like, as long as I'm not doing it the other way, like, this is how stupid it is. Like, as long as I'm not doing this, as long as I'm not using that drug, or as long as I'm not using it like that, or as long as I'm not using it every day, like, these are the types of excuses that addicts make up. So I told myself, as long as I'm not using it the way I was before, I'm okay. So 3 months later, I did. So I called my dad. Hopefully I'm happy that I value myself enough to know when it's time. So I call my dad and tell him I need real help. Not the psych ward this time, please God, no. I told him I need real help. So we called our insurance company. I was still on my dad's insurance, thank God, at this time. And they got me into a place, Black Bear Treatment Center. Now, anybody who has a child that is struggling with addiction, and you don't have money, you can find a way to get insurance. Hopefully, sometimes you can get like really good Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance for completely for free. maybe $12 a month, honestly. It depends on how much you make and when you sign up. But this insurance will completely pay for all of the treatment. Fully outright pay it is like $30,000. It was like $1,000 a day. Insurance paid all of it. The insurance will also pay for sober living. So look, if you have a child that's on drugs, and you care for them and you love them, tell them that you need that, try this. Just try it. So I go to this treatment center. It's called Black Bear Treatment Center. Awesome place. A lot of good memories. Some of my favorite memories. Black Bear Treatment Center in Georgia. And I meet a lot of cool friends there. I have a good time. But then I find out that I can go to sober living, so I go to California. They're all over the place. After your 30 days, you can go to a sober living for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. So I get to California, in Santa Ana, California. I end up at this place called Morningside. And cool place. I got my room. It's apartments, like literal apartments. And get my own room. We have to go to class. We have to wake up Monday through Friday, go to class from, like 9 to 4, come back home. Then we get to do what we want. As we move up, we get more days off. So you work Monday through Friday, going to the classes, different classes, addiction classes, therapy, all this stuff. And then as you level up, you only have to go Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then as you level up, you only have to go Monday. So I'm going to these classes, and I'm about 2 months in. I was doing really good. I was on this thing called the Adventure Program, where because I was doing so well, I was like working at Chick-fil-A and stuff, and I was always a Christian through all of this. This is the weirdest thing. I talked about God so much my entire life. Me and my friends would be getting high, and literally my friends would tell me, Chris, we're not talking about God today. I'm like, fine. Everywhere I went, I spoke about God. Me and my girlfriend, Heaven, when we would go to the methadone clinic, there was this church that would record their sermons on CD, and they would give it to the gas station next to the methadone clinic for free. And every Sunday, I would go get it, and we would listen to it on the way home. And I remember part of the reason why I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, Callie, is because she didn't want to watch Passion of the Christ with me. So, dude, listen, I love Jesus, but I didn't know who he was. I didn't, know what it meant to live for Jesus. And so, yeah, I meet this girl, Aria. Oh, we got to go to Catalina Islands. That's the adventure program. I got to go to Catalina Islands and camp out there. The Wrigley family actually owns a huge mansion out there. I think they actually own the island, if I'm not mistaken. So, anyways, Ariel shows up, this girl, and I really like her a lot. And, the people are telling me there, like, dude, don't. Like, it's bad news. Do not get involved. I don't listen. So we end up leaving, finding a couples treatment center. We're there for a week. She leaves, relapses. So I stay. Then she calls me and is like, hey, I want to come hang out. So we go hang out. And then she tells me, oh, we can actually move in with my mom. She said that's fine. So I'm like, cool. She lives in, like, Woodland Hills, I think is what it's called. California and Los Angeles. Beautiful home, pool in the backyard, everything, overlook. I'm like, yeah, totally, I'm down. So I, like a dummy again, I move in with her. We're there for a day. She takes me to work. She picks me back up. We go to her house. I didn't do anything wrong. Nothing happened. We went to her house the night we hung out. Everything was fine. Cuddled in bed, everything, woke up the next day, went to work. She picked me up, took me back to her house, and the next thing I know, she's coming outside screaming. She walks inside from the car and then comes back outside yelling at me, literally yelling at me, telling me I had to leave, kicking me out. This is like 12 o'clock in the morning, and she's kicking me out. And I'm like, where do I go? So I'm homeless now in Los Angeles, and I'm sleeping behind these bushes. So I'm like, okay, my phone dies. I go to this gas station, and I asked this lady if I could use her cell phone. She actually ended up wanting to hang out with me, and we got a hotel room together, and we stayed together in the hotel for like 4 days, I think. Well, Ariel called me again, And like I didn't have anywhere else to go after me and this other girl stopped hanging out, so I'm like, okay, well, sure, come pick me up. So I go back to her house. She doesn't let me come inside. And when I was hanging out with that girl in the hotel room, she told me, why don't you just go back to treatment? So I took that advice. And so I'm like outside for hours, and I knock on the door. I'm like, Ari, like, what's going on? She opens the door. She is tweaked out of her mind. And this is what was going on. She was on drugs. And she was making irrational decisions, and that's what was happening. Which I don't blame her, because yeah, she was not in her right state of mind at all. And most of us, in fact, when we get sober, we look back at those moments and we're like, I cannot believe I did that. So, forgiveness. And so she's like driving me, and we're going to the gas station, and I tell her I'm going back to treatment, and she just freaks out. She's kicking me in the face, or not kicking me in the face, sorry, she's punching me in the face. She did kick me in the face one time. She's punching me in the face while she's driving like 70 miles per hour, or at least trying to punch me in the face. She had landed a couple blows here and there, but I'm like telling her, like, dude, you need to stop, like, pull over. Finally, she does pull over. I get out, and then Morningside, the same place I was at prior to me and Ariel leaving, they come and pick me up. You've got to go to a detox center. So every time you leave the 30-day treatment center, you have to, if you relapse, before you can go back to the 30-day treat, or to the sober living, of Morningside, or whatever place you're going to, you have to go to detox first for like 7 days. So they take me to detox in Orange County, California, Santa Ana. And while we're there, it was the first night that we were there, and we are outside smoking cigarettes, and then we hear this person just frantically screaming for help. I don't know if frantically would be the right word, but like just really screaming for help. And we're all running around trying to find him. And we ended up finding him. This guy, the little LA ravine things, like where the water flows through. Well, this one had like a drop off. This dude fell because he was climbing over the fence. He fell like 20 feet or something like that. It was tall. And this dude snapped his shin in half, and his bone was popping out of his shin, bro. Like, so we call the fire department, and fire department comes, and they like lift him up. They like send a thing, like a fireman rappels down in there, and then like give him a thing, and then like lift him up. That was a crazy night. Like, this is all happening, dude, like within a span of like 2 weeks. This is all taking place. Like, so I get back into Morningside. I leave the detox, but at that detox I had met this guy JD, and he was gonna go to Morningside, but then I get to Morningside, and they're shutting down now. So this kid calls me, and he tells me there's this insurance fraud thing that's going on, and actually they are like making a bunch of money on the insurance. Like, they're like stealing money from the insurance, like as they get people places to go. It's like messed up, dude. They're like playing with people's sobriety, because they're like, oh, well, you'll get $5,000 if you do this. Then they leave and they relapse, and then they go to a detox because they have to relapse, and then they go to a detox being promised $5,000, and then they don't get it, like me. So I go to this place called Vita. They had nothing to do with this insurance fraud. It was the person that was sending me there. Awesome place. They were Armenian Christian family. It was a family, man. These people, I miss them to this day. Just awesome people. And so I'm there for 30 days. Then I graduate. I decide, my therapist, she's like, we're trying to figure out where I'm going to go, because I'm not from Los Angeles. Or, yeah, because now in Los Angeles, Vita's in Los Angeles, so now I'm back in Los Angeles. We're trying to figure out where I'm going to go, so I'm like, I called JD, the guy I met at Detox, and I hit him up, and actually, I move in with him. He tells me he lived in the heart of downtown. He lives in the heart of downtown LA in on like the 13th floor of a condo, or in a condo, and I mean like the heart of downtown LA. And so I move in with him. And I've never been to downtown Los Angeles, so it's pretty cool, like we're going and partying in Hollywood Boulevard and stuff. And there's places, he was a publicist, so he was a publicist for like different actors and stuff prior he wasn't doing it anymore, but he still had a bunch of connections, and he had access to a bunch of clubs that the regular citizens didn't have access to. So I was going to these clubs with him, and before you could even get into these clubs, first off, you had to wear all black, but you had to do a witchcraft ritual before you could go into the club. It depended on what phase the moon was in, or whatever you needed, you know what I'm saying? Like, you would burn things, it was a witchcraft ritual. So you'd get in, and I don't know, like, if you ever seen the movie Blade and, like, the vampire clubs, parts of the club were like that, like smoky and like rave music, and then some parts were a little calmer. But there was like dark hallways with like red lights, and like it was super smoky, and we were going to the bathroom and stuff, and doing the LA lifestyle. And so him and I are both back in full-blown addiction. I'm drinking again every day. That's just Los Angeles, man. I mean, like, of course I'm going to get back into it. Of course. It's downtown Los Angeles. The most stupid decision I ever made was to go to downtown Los Angeles thinking I'm going to remain clean. Especially with another addict, right? So I decide, like, okay, I'm going to go back to Vita. So I go back to Vita, and I graduate again. But now I'm going to Pensacola. This dog right here, she was being watched by this lady. And so I moved to Pensacola, Florida. And I'm moving with this lady who's watching my dog. The most humid place I've ever lived, bro. Like, horrible. Like, there's no point. Like, it's almost like there's no point in taking a shower, because the moment your foot steps out of the shower, you're drenched in sweat. But, so I'm like having to bike like 6 miles a day just looking for a job because I don't have a car. And I'm smoking with this lady, and I'm drinking with this lady. We're going to bars together, right? Well, one day, I get back home after biking like 6 miles and putting in a bunch of resumes, and she comes in, bro. I think she was on drugs, because, like, she comes in, I'm drinking a beer, and then she just goes off on me, just yelling at me, like, I thought you were going to go to Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff like this. And, like, literally the night before, we were sitting there smoking weed together watching TV. Like, so I'm like, finally it calms down a little bit. I'm like, dude, look, I gotta walk away. So I go walk away. I go to the bedroom, and I lay down. And this lady, I kid you not, comes into the bedroom, grabs me by my clothes, and rips me off the bed and throws me on the floor. And I'm just like, whatever. I'm like, I'm not dealing with this. So I just lay back down. She does it again. She does it a third time. So now I'm standing up. She's punching me in the face and, like, daring me to hit her. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Excuse my language. Sorry, but that is, like, what is going on? So I call my mom. My mom picks me up from Georgia. I go stay with my mom, because now it's like, this is the only place I have now. I'm living with my mom, and this is during Christmas. And for 2 weeks, I was good. I was working with my stepdad. But it was almost Christmas. And I think it was like 2 days before Christmas. And I'm getting something out of the fridge and the freezer. And I see a bunch of airplane liquor shots in the freezer. So I decided to drink a couple. Well, that couple turned into 3, then 4, then 5, until I was completely blackout drunk. And the only thing that I remember is walking down. It's freezing cold that night in the middle of nowhere in Georgia. And just walking down the road with my headphones in. I think I was listening to Chris Stapleton. What is that song? At that time, what was that song? It was Chris Stapleton, but I remember listening to that song. But there was a Christmas tree farm next to my mom's house. And, like, dude, demons, I'm telling you, can possess you when you're drunk, man. I'm telling you, it is, when you need to be careful, because when you are way too intoxicated, it actually opens the door for demons, which is why so many bad things happen. Yes, you make bad decisions, right, when you're drunk in general, like your inhibition, I think is what it's called, is gone, or your inhibitions, I don't know. But it does open the demonic door. I just randomly got this thought. I remember break into that place. So I remember listening to Chris Stapleton, but next thing I know, I remember throwing a rock at some glass. And then the next thing I know is I see a giant teddy bear in the corner of my bedroom. So, the next morning I wake up and I realized what I did. And the amount of guilt and shame that came over me, I cannot describe with words. I was so ashamed of myself. I was so embarrassed of myself. I could not believe that I did that. Remember what I said earlier, you do things when you're on drugs that you would never do sober. I would have never done that sober, ever. That's what happens though. So I'm like, okay, my mom finds out, and yes, I stole a giant teddy bear, the life-size teddy bear. That's pretty much all I got out of it. And so God's watching out for me.